Hello and welcome to the Pig and Whistle Tales from Azeroth. As always here at the Pig and Whistle Inn in Stormwind, I go for a variety of subjects with regards to World of Warcraft. I grab a bottle or a pint, sit back and enjoy. This midweek episode we'll be going over the What Are series, and we're going to be looking at Shaman, the totem loving class, the one that just put down little pets that are static and essentially let them do your job for you. So, Shaman has 3 specializations. I'm not miscounting. No, they do have 3. You have enhancement, elemental, and restoration. 2 of these being DPS specs, the other being a, healing spec, that's the one. The 2 DPS specs are a range DPS, which is elemental, and enhance, which is a melee specialization. Well, I say melee, it's kind of a mix, because there are some spells and like builds at the moment where it is a lot of your damage does come from like lightning bolt and stuff like that, so kind of ranged. It's kind of a weird hybrid of the 2, but essentially the specializations are very unique in their own way. Enhance at the moment utilizes 2 melee weapons where you're constantly doing a lot of small damage. Elemental is more overload, it's called, and what overload is essentially, if you throw out a lava burst, you have a chance to mimic the lava burst, so you throw out another one, and with that you have another chance to throw out another one, and not vice versa, etc, etc. So if you get really lucky, it's called a lava lottery, I would call it. And essentially you can get 5 of these lava bursts back to back, same with lightning bolts, etc. But you've got to be very lucky, and the chances obviously decrease as you proc more and more of these things back to back. Or not the chance, you always have a set chance to proc, but more of the probability of it happening is a lot lower the more that you proc, essentially. Restoration is all about utilising your restoration spells, so Healing Wave, Earth Shield, Healing Stream Totem, Healing Tide Totem. It really does, well, actually all Shaman specs kind of rely on your totems. You have a lot of your utility through totems. Restoration have a lot of stopping power with Grounding Totem. What is the other one? Earthen Wall Totem, Healing Tide Totem. Whereas you look at Sky Fury Totem for enhance and elemental. If you want to increase your critical strike damage, you look at static field totem to crowd control some enemies. All of their utility comes from these totems, as it were. I've said totems way too many times. It comes from all of these things, and a lot of the time it's about managing when to use them. So Healing Stream Totem is very useful, and if you put it behind a pillar, it means that the enemies can't kill it quite as easily, and therefore you've used it quite effectively. If you put it in the middle of the map, people just switch to it and kill it instantly, and it's not useful. So it's all about managing these totems, and if you like sort of a pet class, these are kind of like the same, but they don't act as a pet, as it were. I don't really know how to describe it, but essentially all of their utility or not all, but most of their utility and healing does come from these totems, which is really cool and a really cool class sort of niche. And that's the way that it's been ever since Classic, when Wind Fury Totem would give melees an extra potential swing on their weapons, that kind of deal. PvP / PvE, I would mainly go over PvP. Elemental is a very strong class, especially if there's ever like a wizard cleave meta. So a wizard cleave is anything that's like spell casting, like 2 spellcasters, because Shamans actually have a really good matchup into casters. They have Grounding Totem, which stops certain spells. They have Tremor, which stops fears. They have a very good kick, one of the most effective kicks on the shortest cooldown. They have a lot of stopping power against these classes. If it's against any sort of melee, it's a bit more difficult, but you do still have utilities such as Earth Grab Totem and Stone Skin Totem, which reduces physical damage, and roots players that get caught near the Earth Grab Totem, so there is still some utility there. But in PvP, Elemental is probably one of the better ones. Enhance is very gimmicky at the moment. It's one of the I don't know how to really put it. Most annoying specs to play against, because they do nothing and then they just one-shot you. And anything that one-shots in an arena shouldn't be in an arena. Shouldn't be in an arena setting at all, in my honest opinion. And it's just not healthy for the game. So when they get evened out and it's more consistent damage, rather than just one instant burst and everything's dead, and then you do nothing for about 3 minutes until you get another instant one shot, and then rinse and repeat. It's just not great at the moment for Enhance. You have 1 or 2 builds. One of them is being very cheesy. 2 is more consistent, but it's not as sort of effective. You probably need to try a lot harder to make it work. Restoration is in a decent place. It's not in the best place. I think a lot of its utility comes down to whether or not you are against caster cleaves. Because if you go up against a melee cleave, it's so tough to actually get like effectiveness from your stuff, because you just can't tank it as much. Against casters, you're amazing. You have grounding totem, like I said, static field, a lot of CC, kicks, etc. Against melees, you kind of just get run down, and that's probably the downside to Shaman at the moment, that it can just get run down a little bit easier than other healers like Evoker or Paladin, anything like that. Even Holy Priest probably is a bit tankier than it, which is saying something. But yeah, it's not great at the moment, but it's in a very solid place, I would say. You could probably just add a couple more things, but it has its niche, which is against caster cleaves. So if caster cleaves ever become meta, Shaman suddenly, or restoration shamans at the very least, do spring up along with caster cleave metas. They don't really have pets. Totems are kind of classed as pets, but not at the same time. So they really don't. RP-wise, you are one with the land, essentially. You utilise the nature around you, the elements and all of that, the fire, wind, earth. You're kind of the avatar, almost, of World of Warcraft, mastering all 4 elements and all that stuff. You obviously can wear 2-handed weapons if you want to walk in with the Hand of Ragnaros, Sulphurous, anything like that. It's very cool. You can put down totems and be like, this is my protection. I turn to the earth for protection, all that shit, and then put down like a Stoneclaw totem or whatever, all that RP stuff. I'm absolutely awful with it, but it is what it is. The pros of Shaman are the amount of utility that they can have. They're one of the classes that have the most buttons in the game, I think, in terms of to press. Yeah, they probably have the most buttons, so you need the most keybinds, but it means that they have the most sort of potential answers to certain things. So caster cleave, you have grounding totem, kick, etc. But the cons are, if it isn't a caster cleave, they are very much in danger of being run down. It's too bloated, potentially, some of the buttons in the Shaman class. It does need a little bit of a pruning, I think, Shaman. Maybe just a tiny bit, because it is way too many buttons, and to keybind that many things. Because there might not be something that you think you need. Let's say, we'll go with Hex as an example. Hex is a very good spell, and you definitely need this, but I'm using it as an example. Say you've got a shit ton of stuff keybinded, and then the one situation that you could have used Hex to win you a PvP game or to time that mythic key, you didn't have it keybound and you had to click it. And that 1 second, click it, took you over the timer, or meant that you couldn't get your CC off, or, the person died instead in your arena team. It means that you have to then keybind it, and you've got to find something to keybind it to. So you've got all these keybinds already, 30 odd or something, we'll say, and you need 31. And the last keybind that you can think of doing is probably Control P or something, and they're completely opposite sides to the keyboard. So it's really awkward to press, that kind of deal. That's where bloating is really bad of spells. That's why some classes do need a bit of pruning every now and again when it comes to these spells. But I don't think it needs much. Maybe a couple of spells need to be taken away, but that's not really that big of a deal. That is one of the cons, though, that there are so many spells that you need to kind of keybind for Shaman that it's probably best that it gets a couple of key or spells taken away from it, or at least put into the talent tree and stuff like that, so people have the choice still to take. But that is it for this episode. Thank you all very much for listening. As always, do check out all of the stuff down below: Twitch, TikTok, YouTube, and support the show is also down below. You can click that link and support the show even further. But thank you all very much for listening, and go with Valor, friend. Goodbye all.